We're getting into a conversation this morning around potatoes. And we might want to trivialize it, but it is important stuff. And our guest is here with us in the studio already. Washira Kaguongo is the CEO of the National Potato Council. There's so much that we want to find out today, but first of all, we're going to say welcome.
Thank you.
Good morning, and how are you doing?
Good morning to you. I'm doing well.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Karibu. We were hoping you'd bring us a sample of what you champion.
I could have carried, but...
we are thinking about bajias today.
Very good to have you here. And even as we normally do, we want to welcome you to the Situation Room this morning. And we normally do that by giving you a proverb. This proverb today comes from Mozambique. Every week we're in a different African country, and from that country, a proverb which we would like to have you interpret for us. So I'm going to tell you what the proverb is. And it goes like this. Whether the melon falls on the knife or the knife falls on the melon, it is the melon that suffers. How would you interpret that?
Well, I think quick interpretation or understanding, it means that always you have to look at the weaker side and the stronger side. So if there's a situation where two things are competing, the weaker side has to be aware that whatever comes, it's the one that's gonna suffer. So it's good to prepare and be able to argue their case or remain calm and stable. It's actually the weaker side that should always look at things better than the other side. So it's always good to be aware that you need to be prepared always.
Always be prepared. This melon can be prepared. The knife could fall on you, it could fall on the knife, but at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to have a bit of an issue. Good way to look at it. We are looking into the International Day of the Potato. By golly, we didn't know that this day existed. And I'm very, very interested in all of this. Every time we hear the potato, we think what we are going to eat. Boiled potato, mashed potato, fried potato, crisps, anything.
It depends on where you come from.
Also depends on where you come from.
Waru goes into cabbage.
What?
Yes, it depends on where you come. Waru enters any stew, beef stew. It's called a goulash, I think, in other parts of the world.
Yes, it's called a goulash.
Yeah, it's called mashakura, but it's very elevated in other parts of the world.
I don't know that I would say mashakura is a goulash, but okay, Wajiro, you can go, you can try. But we don't know. Let's see by the end of this conversation if you would have convinced people. So let's start off, tell us, there's a National Potato Council. That must mean something, that there's a council that has been set up by state to address this root, which is the potato. It is a root. It's not a root, it's a bulb, it's a tuber.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a tuber. So an entire council was set up to talk about this tuber and what it then can do. Let's start with the beginnings, the genesis of setting up a council, realizing then why that is there. Let's start from there.
Yeah, thank you. The council was not set up by state, but state was part of the setting up. It was set up by the stakeholders. More than 12 years ago, 2010, is when the stakeholders came together. They realized, after realizing that potato is not being given the prominence it deserves in terms of policy, in terms of budgeting, and in terms of institutional support. And when you look at the contribution of potato compared to maize, we find that by that time it was contributing around 50 billion also, compared to maize, which contributed about 120 billion. This is despite of maize being given a lot of support in all ways. So there was a need to create awareness and support potato and have lobbying so that we can have policies, supportive policies, we can have budgetary support, and we can have institutional support. At that time, very few development partners were in the space of potato. This is particularly important because when you look at at is happening in developing country, potato is more important than maize because it feeds the population. There is a lot of income from potato, and through the entire value chain, from farm to up to the processing, and then the products that you find in developed country that from potatoes, there are so many, including things like starch, flour, noodles, and we are not yet to go there, including alcohol. So it was, National Potato Council was set to now lobby and also create that awareness, and it's made up of public and private sector partners. Both the government and public sector came together, starting with the national government, Ministry of Agriculture, and government agencies like KEFIS, CARO, and now AFA and KEPS. They are all members. We work together. And then farmer associations, farmers, individual farmers, and seed producers, input companies, processors, traders, academia, all stakeholders came together, and it was realized that there's a need to create a forum for information exchange, discussion, solution search, and also networking, and that's how we always come together, and that's how now the International Potato Day is coming on board. We are organizing all of us as stakeholders.
Mm.
Yeah.
I understand that the potato is the second largest employer in the agricultural sector. Is it?
It's the second most important in terms of food and cash crop.
Mm. Right.
Yes, to maize. But
to maize.
I think now it's almost fast.
Okay. It might be fast. About 3 million. The numbers. What would the numbers be? Because my little understanding in this sector is like maybe some 3-4 years ago it would have been maybe 3 million employed, if you include everybody who draws livelihood from the potato, which is quite a lot of people. And then also my question was going to be, historically the potato was not given attention, like you've said, by government. It was employing, so it means that farmers were the ones supporting the potato, creating this source of revenue. And so when you came together as stakeholders, you had some policy objectives. What were those policy objectives?
Yeah, as you are...
what were the problems you were facing, yes. And what did you... Because you were already doing quite well. Why did you need government if you're almost number 2 without government support, without really strong government intervention?
Okay, we are all in this. With the government or the public, we are all in this. And anything that can make the country prosper is good for us. The realization that the potential of potato is not fully exploited triggered that. Mm-hmm. And the fact that the contribution, for example, the yields of potato has been started, it was about six tons per hectare, came to 8, now it's about more than 10 tons. But we are still very far when you look at the Europe, including home here, Egypt, and South Africa, who are doing that 5 tons per hectare. So the fact that there is a lot of potential from potato, we had to look at what is that is preventing us from reaching that bit. And one of them, of course, is technologies, innovations, and science. And the other one is the adoption of improved varieties, and also now the gaps, which means good agricultural practices. You'll find that farmers for many years have just been recycling seed. When you say recycling, it means once they get seed from whatever source, the next season they'll just pick the smaller tubers and call them seed. The next season, the same. and the same next season. And this is very dangerous and detrimental to the farm, because when you are selecting the smaller ones, these smaller ones most probably are small because they have diseases and they have pests. So effectively what you're doing, you are spreading diseases in your farm. And also you are selecting those that don't have potential. Even during our old age, Wazirs used to look for, in the livestock, they used to look for the big bulls to be the sire or to be the father of others. So looking at that concept, always you have to look at what are you using for producing as seed. And therefore there was a need to produce more seed and make awareness and create awareness of for farmers to know that it's good to use high quality seed and also adapt potatoes for good varieties. For many years, most people or most households knew potato is only for the githeri you are talking about, the stew, and even up to today, people don't know that potato can be processed to produce other products. And that is another area that we had very few varieties for processing. In fact, until recently, about 4 years ago, when people, when there was a debate about importation of potato for frozen potato, people didn't know we have special varieties that are meant for processing that can be frozen and also be used after frozen. And also they didn't know there's a need for what we call cold chain, where you produce tubers or potatoes that can be put in, that can be frozen and remain viable or usable. So those are some of the things that made us come together to exploit the potential, because we can move from 10 tons per hectare to over 35 tons per hectare. Again, productivity. We are estimating in the next 4 to 5 years will be the contribution of potato will move from about 70 billion per year to more than 150 billion.
Billion what?
Kenya shillings.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, obviously, it's consumed. What is being produced in Kenya is being consumed in Kenya, is it not?
Most of it, yeah.
Most of it is being...
Actually, most of it.
Okay. And there are many derivatives of it, whether we are looking at it then going into manufacturing, where you look at things like you said, crisps, noodles, etc., or what is used on the home front for, Wajiro's goulash, however you want to do that across board. But then you also talk about it being processed. Like where I come from, potato is actually used as like maize meal. It's one of the things that comes from it. So you do like the ugali, but it comes from potatoes. A very smooth and interesting thing. I do know that there was a time when the output of maize in the country was a problem, so much so that there were imports of maize to then be able to boost what was already locally produced or locally harvested. And then there was the conversation about alternate forms of staples. Was potato front and center of that conversation as well for something that could then augment the country's staple?
Yes, it was and it has been. And if you look at the government attention for the last several governments, they've given potato more attention. And potato has been included in most of the government agenda, including the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Potato has been always picked now because it's seen as a very strategic food crop. It was actually included into National Food Strategic Reserve. So there are plans to work into that because even when you look at during famine, potato is more suitable for feeding the hunger-stricken community compared to maize because first, if it can be converted to dehydrated cubes or flour, it can be stored for long. And then when you feed it to the hunger-stricken community, it's easier to just reconstitute and make food from it compared to maize. So it's a very strategic crop. And yes, attention has been there. area, and that's why we have quite a number of programs, which include potato, including now CDP, and for example, right now we have a program called Kenya Potato Sustainable Initiative, which is looking at alternative uses and also storage. Storage is very key to avoid prices going down and waste, because unfortunately most of their farmers use irrigated farming, and therefore all of them harvest at the same time, and the prices go down. And you find that at some point farmers are not getting good prices, and then some other time there is no potato. We are importing from neighboring countries. So we need to organize ourselves, and that's what we are working on, to make sure that potato is stored and then released for continuous supply to both table and agro-processing sector.
I look at these numbers that you talk about, 70 to 150 billion. That's a lot of shillings for potatoes. And yet, we have international franchises who come into Kenya, right?
Yep.
And they say that the variety of potato, or the way it's processed, or the way it's cut, or the quality is not up to scratch. And I know that it then becomes a bit of a political conversation. But then if the potential is so great, these numbers that we're talking, that's already what is being done, not what can be done. Why would an international franchise come into the country and want to bring their potatoes with them, as opposed to using what is locally available and then boosting the economy on this side as well?
Yes, I think minus politics, these franchises have their own standards. They have certain requirements like traceability and certain varieties that work. The way what I mentioned about varieties that can be frozen. So they have, we have started working with them since when there was a lot of shouting, and I think by now more than 40% is being produced from, used or used for
sourced locally.
Since we have started making plans or establishing systems that will supply them, and we are working together with them. Currently, we have partnered with most of them, and AFA, KEBS, and National Potato Council, and we are working to create a code of practice which will help farmers produce what these franchises require from the variety type and the gaps, good agricultural practices, including the agrochemicals that you use, including the varieties that you use when you harvest, because some farmers harvest premature potato which cannot be stored well, it cannot be frozen. So we are working on that, and we expect by end of this year we'll be there. But by today, more than 40% is being sourced locally. So we are improving in that.
A couple of questions. The potato came into the country. My little history on this tells me came into the country around 1890 during that the colonial settlements, and it was first adopted by the Kikuyu. And then after being adopted by the Kikuyu, who were growing it on settler farms, because by this time, of course, land appropriation was taking place. Food is very political. Then at some point in the 1940s, the settlers introduced the potato now as a cash crop and started spreading it into other parts of I'm not sure that date is correct, other parts of the country, and were exporting it. So it came in through the Kikuyus, it was used locally, and then some time after, it was spread out intentionally by the settlers, and by the 1940s and 1950s, it was being exported. Maybe that from around 1920, they were exporting. So that during the war, the potato was a crucial food that was exported to the front lines by the colonial governments. Then the yields began to drop for various reasons, including husbandry, including, various things. And there were a couple of commissions. There was the Bassett recommendations, then there was the Swinton plan, which is the more famous that we know. This first commission proposed that smallholder farmers, because the way the potato came in was for very local produce, it was smallholder, these people needed to be protected because majority, 70% of the production was by these smallholders. They needed to be protected from middlemen and brokers through the establishment of marketing boards and cooperatives that could ensure the farmer benefits. The second report, Swinton Plan of 1955, was influenced by the large producers, and they overrode many of the recommendations of the Bassett report. And this created the structure of potato farming that ignored the smallholder and focused more on the big producers. So when we come to where we are now, of course, a lot of things have happened, but our smallholder farmers have continued to suffer at the hands of brokers and middlemen and middlewomen. What has your council done to protect the smallholder farmer from us moving from 70B to 150B, and that farmer remains selling potatoes by the roadside? Because a majority still do that.
Yeah, I'm impressed. You've done your homework.
Well,
yeah,
I have confessions to make, but yes.
We'll just go with that for now.
Yeah. What we'd want to do is exactly what you're talking about. Go back to where farmers, small-scale farmers, are benefiting from their sweat. And also we are benefiting from local and international markets. And through the program I mentioned called Kenya Sustainable Potato Initiative, where we are working with AGRA, CARO, and Egerton, and county governments and national government, we are looking at the policies of supportive policies and working on standards and traceability. These standards will help us capture the market, the external markets. Right now, it's very difficult to export because we don't have those standards. So after we have established those standards, we are already looking for markets in Arab countries and other external markets. The other thing we are doing, we already did what we call potato regulation, Irish potato regulations, which was launched in 2019. Unfortunately, some people went to court saying there was no public participation and all that. Of course, it's normally some interested parties that do that. Those who are interested in, have interest in the chaos. But those regulations were passed using the correct process according to the Constitution, and finally that has been we have gone back and cleared all the barriers, and AFA together with National Potato Council and stakeholders will be relaunching the implementation of those regulations during the International Potato Day on 30th, which will be in Marindas, Caro Maridas, to be launched. That is a very important step because we find traders packing more than almost 200 kilos per bag, which is not even good for health. Even international labor law prohibits human being carrying more than 50 kg weight
on their back. Okay, so having a conversation with Wachira Kaguongo, who is the CEO of the National Potato Council. We're looking at some of these details. I know you wanted to come in with something, and for purposes of clarity, we've said that this is not the sweet potato derivative. It's not even a derivative of a potato. No. It's a variety of potato, different, right? So we're talking about the Irish potato here. And what your question?
Yes. I'll floss a little bit.
Here we
Irish potato originally came from South America, the Andean region of South America, where they'd grown it for 9,000 years.
Jeez.
And then it found its way through the Spanish invasion into Europe, into Ireland, into Britain. And of course, we know a lot about it from the Irish blights and the
drought.
The Great Famine again, a very political. I've come to find food is very political because the Irish, the division between England and Ireland is around this potato, or rather there's a big history there. But coming back to here, smallholder farmers, majority of our farmers are smallholders, and they tend to be very poor. The poorest, some of them can't even afford the produce that, especially the processed parts. Now, these smallholder farmers, research shows that they struggle with the controls that are being given in terms of the standards and the measures, because they are costly. At the same time, government is spending less on extension farming. Government is spending less on support, direct support. Farmers need to maybe borrow the money, you need to get your own credit and capital, and smallholder farmers might not be able to access. So my question again, is the council looking after in your vision, is it in the value chain? Is the smallholder farmer the beneficiary, or is it those farmers who are the larger producers, entrepreneurs? You talked about refrigeration, storage. In India, where their cooperatives have worked much better than here, cooperatives do very big things. Cooperatives can have set up radio stations, TV stations, because you have a huge membership base that can actually make investments. So properly speaking, refrigeration and all should be part of the cooperative movement, so that this farmer is now benefiting from the other sectors that are associated with the primary. In this country, I know there are external financiers and because I know a number of people who work in that business of refrigeration. So we are importing, and the people bringing it in are actually taking the benefits of refrigeration. They come and they charge the farmers. So we have a model that takes money away from small farmers. What is your model? What is your value chain? And are we going to will we hit 150B, because I'm sure we will, in production, and leave that farmer still struggling? A few, JM told us, the land of, 100 millionaires and 10 million paupers?
Yeah, again, let me confirm that the initiatives that we have, the small-scale farmer is at the center of our initiative, and we are not separating the big farms or small farms, because each one have their benefits. The large farms are very good, especially when it comes to seed production, certified seed production, and again, we are looking at all those areas that you have mentioned. One of the focus of the project I've told you is to ensure that farmers have access to even the financial, finance and capital. Okay, so we are working with the financial institutions and insurance also. And I want to correct you the one area that potato farmers are not poor. No. And what we are trying to change that narrative, that concept, that small-scale farmers are poor. In fact, not even in potato only. It's only that we do not capture the economics that goes around the small-scale farmers. There is a lot of food capital moving around the small-scale farmers. So it's only that we don't capture it. We only capture what goes to the bank, what is exported, and all these. So what we are trying to do is to help them be able to access capital and also finance. This is by working with the financial institutions that are able to structure the financial facility that suits the crop. For example, you don't give a farmer a loan today and start wanting to get the payback in a month also. No, that cannot work, because you have to wait until maybe 4 months to start getting the interest and also the principal. Now, again, the interest rates are sometimes very high for the farmers. So we are working together with financial institutions and government institutions that are able to provide that service. We are also helping the farmers to access markets. This is by two things, which you have actually mentioned. I'm impressed you have done a lot of homework. The cooperatives, this project is strengthening and helping farmers form strong cooperatives who will be able to consolidate demand and also supply. And one of the things we have done is registered all these cooperatives, and we are forming an apex umbrella body that will help them in ultimate sourcing. If it is fertilizer, if it is seed, we have a digital platform called Viazi Soko. Viazi Soko, farmers register in Viazi Soko, and we have what we call farm service providers, VBAs, village-based advisors. These are young farmers who have smartphone and who can be able to help farmers register into that Viazi Soko digital platform and order either seed, fertilizer, or agrochemical. And for every order they do, they get some commission. So that way we help farmers in consolidating orders. And when we are sourcing for inputs, we are able to bargain and deliver to them. So we are actually, the farmers are at the core of these projects. Then contract farming. We are giving them contract farming so that we link them directly to the market with the processing, the companies that we have upcoming, very many upcoming processing companies who want specific varieties, who want specific standards. And what we are doing is helping farmers access this market through contract farming and providing them the standards and helping them get those varieties that can be used for processing. So this small-scale farmer is at the core of our initiatives, including mechanization. We are also supporting youth to access equipments and then lease them. For example, we are also helping them acquire drones for spraying agrochemicals to the farms, both potato and other crops. So yes, they are at the heart of our initiatives.
What regions of the country are we seeing that potato is then grown to these levels or to these amounts that we are looking for? Where is it thriving?
We have more than 16 counties that you'd say are growing substantial amount of potatoes. We can start with Nyandarua, Nakuru, Elgeyo Marakwet, Bomet, Narok, Uasin Gishu, Nandi, Meru, Nyeri, Laikipia, Taita Taveta, Bungoma, West Pokot, Kiambu,
Okay, so that's what we look at. Is it possible to grow this crop in other parts of the country where they're not naturally grown, for example?
Yes, it is. It is possible. What happens is that most of the varieties that were introduced earlier, they were pro-poor. We can call them pro-poor. They were meant to be for food security. And so they were supposed to be grown without a lot of support in terms of agrochemicals and other nutrients. But now with commercialization, which we are trying to establish or to help farmers commercialize, as long as you have water for irrigation and you have nutrients, and then during tuberization, this is a time the potato is forming during flowering stage.
Yes.
The night temperature goes below 15 degrees centigrade. You have your potato.
Okay.
Yes, as long as you give water, and then at night during tuberization, the temperature goes below 15 degrees centigrade, and that's why Egypt are growing it.
And that's why these international franchises are going for Egypt.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we will. They are not going now.
I mean, they've been for a long time.
Yes, but now they are coming here. Yeah, we should be ready for them.
Absolutely, and that was my next question, that actually, are we ready for them? And I want to link that to traditional practices that we saw, that the things that we're actually asking of ourselves to do in the modern day are things that were actually being done by a lot of people traditionally. When you talk about dehydrating your potato, for example, so that you could use it later. I was in Narok quite for some time, and I saw that the women are slicing this potato and they're drying it and they're putting it away. You would think it was dirty or that they wouldn't be able to use it again, but they put it away in such a manner that when there is now no rain, this thing was fascinating to me to see that they would now take it and they would soak it in water for maybe half a day, and the thing would plump up as though you picked it from the farm that day. But they've preserved food. The mechanisms through which they used to is just, flat surface and then the sun, right? For some time, and maybe a little bit of salt. But the process that they used to do that is now, a lot of the mechanization that we see today is based on traditional practices that they now said, let's see how we can perfect this thing that people were doing before. Beyond that, also the way that they farm, keeping the soil authentic and maintaining the integrity of the soil is also something that I think we can learn from and still do, even if we're looking into this place where we're now manufacturing on a grand scale or, growing on a larger scale. But that the simplicity of the process, are we still seeing that we are maintaining that even when we are going towards mechanization? Because it worked then and it's still working.
Yeah, let me first confirm that I believe that there is a lot of indigenous knowledge and skills that we are likely to lose or have lost because of not giving attention and trying to elevate it or give it more prominence. That is true. There's a lot of that we can benefit from that used to be there and can be advanced. Just building on that. Number two, even as we welcome international companies, we are also expecting or helping or supporting local companies to grow to that level. And we are working with a number of them, which we are supporting to grow to that level. So it is possible, and we are providing the infrastructure for growth into that direction. The technologies that we always, as entrepreneurs and investors, which we want to convert ourselves to, including the small scale farmers, you check what you have can be upscaled, and what do your neighbor have that can be adopted into your need, so that there's net gain. So we are not saying we are only depending on those international ones. No, we welcome them. We take advantage of what they can bring to us, and also what we have here, which include our local investors. And that's why we have a very strong initiative for the youth. In fact, the International Day of Potato is on 30th. 29th, we have a youth day where we are showcasing the initiatives which they can take up, including the drones, including there's a pitching where they have been pitching coming up with ideas which they think can make business in potato area, and that day will be announcing who is the winner. So we are really supporting the youth in all ways and linking them to companies that can hold them, and also linking them to financial sources. We also have partnered with another initiative called SEHA. SEHA is COMESA East African Horticulture Accelerator, looking at potato, avocado, and onion. And we have what we call matching grants, where we are advising or rather supporting the youth and small enterprises to apply. First round has gone on. Another round will be taking place in October.
Okay.
A couple of questions, and it sounds great and well done on those initiatives. Vitu kwa ground, sometimes viko different. When you talk about small scale, what percentage of potato growing is by smallholder? This is quarter acre, half acre. This very local. What percentage of the growers are in that category, and are you able to tap those? Because small scale might be somebody who's able to actually graduate into a company that, So are you dealing with a smallholder as well? Because I believe they might be the majority. Yep. And those are the ones who I believe financially might not be able to meet the threshold of all these things you're talking about. And are you giving them support? Then the other thing, as you commercialize, of course, there's a big debate around seeds.
Yes.
And that debate has to do with food sovereignty. Because if every time you're planting, you're buying seeds, as opposed to the traditional way in which seeds could be recycled, and there was a way of recycling them so you maintain the quality, this is undermining, especially in a water insecure and food insecure situation. That dependency becomes a big liability to our food security in the country. So in terms of commercialization, how are you ensuring food sovereignty is maintained? How are you ensuring soil integrity is maintained? That the farming practices are organic, are wholesome, so that we don't get the output, but at such a high cost to the environment.
Yeah, there's a number of approaches that we are using on that. First, we have two types of varieties. We have what we call public varieties and private varieties. A good number of processing varieties are private varieties, which means it's not everybody who can produce seed of that variety. So if you want to commercialize into that direction, you have to keep buying seed. We have public varieties like Shangi and others, which can be produced by anybody. As long as you are registered, you are a seed merchant, you are registered, you can produce it and sell. Now, what we are doing, we are actually supporting both commercialized and non-commercialized farmers, and even the smallest farmers. We have different approaches of, for example, there's something you've mentioned which is very key. We have very high demand for seed. And it's not that we have reduced what we used to produce, it is the demand has gone up. Very many people know about seed now. Through that, via SOCO, we are getting a lot of inquiries and orders which we cannot satisfy. And that's why we had an announcement of people who are interested to invest in seed space. We will support them. And we had a meeting, we are working with them. Now, what I was saying is that for small-scale farmers who cannot buy seed, certified seed, they need to just have the first lot. Then there is a procedure of how you can do your own seed without buying every season. Once you buy once, the next season, there is a way you are trained on how to select your seed for the next season without going back. That one we are taking care of. It's called positive selection. And of course, every time you use that kind of method, the yield go down every season. So you're not supposed to do it more than 3 times.
So there's the responsibility also, the governance also on the part of the farmer.
Yeah, we are also training them on that, so that if you're not able to buy every other time, there is a seed you can buy, and there is a way you do it, you produce for yourself. But you cannot pack that seed and sell.
And sell it, you can't resell.
Yes, it's not good.
So even as we wind down that...
Maybe the point, or another point on that, we are also promoting disease-resistant varieties, which now will help them, because the biggest problem in potato is late breed. That is the most common one. Now, these varieties have resistance. We have some that have been introduced by a company called Sarita, and what they're doing is they're using what you call true potato seed, and that will also help in terms of storability, storage, transportation, and all these.
Very quickly, as we round this up, what varieties are grown in Kenya? Folks are asking white, yellow, red. What varieties are actually grown in Kenya that can be used?
There are very many varieties, over 62 of them, which have been registered. It's not all of them that have. We have Challengers, we have Tauras, we have Wanjiko, we have Sherekea, we have Asante.
Okay, so they're not going by their colors, but they're actually going by the name.
We have red and white varieties.
Okay, there we go. That's what we're looking for.
Is there any chance you'll pick up sweet potatoes?
There's always that demand or request, but I think its time will come. We decided first to perfect on potatoes, and then we bring others
into the play. The CEO of the National Potato Council, Washira Kagwango, has been here as our guest this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.